Okay. Okay. So in today's agenda, right, I will give you the quick EPM introduction. So right now I gave an introduction only. So I will try to cover much more things within the EPM introduction. How the CyberArk EPM works, I will cover today. The next one is we will look into the CyberArk EPM sets and roles. Then how we can manage the users in the EPM console, like how the EPM license being managed, how we can do a SAML configuration, and the agent deployment. So this is what we will be covering in today's agenda. Okay. So okay. So before going into this, going to talk about Endpoint Privilege Manager, first we will understand what is an endpoint. Endpoint is nothing but a device which you are using to connect your organization infrastructures. Okay, to connect your organization infrastructures to perform your daily job or for your business PA activities. The device that you are using it, right? That is what called as endpoint. So, for example, if you're you're logging into your desktop and trying to connect your organization's infrastructure, so that the place where the desktop is also is an endpoint. From the desktop, you're trying to RDPN Windows Server or trying to put in Unix and Xbox. That is also considered as an endpoint. Okay, that's where your laptop, your desktop, or even your network devices, mobiles, wireless, and IoT device, whatever the device that's being used in an organization, which is something connecting to an organization network, is considered as an endpoint. Okay, but when it comes to Endpoint Privilege Manager, the network device, mobiles, or wireless IoT device are not get managed. Okay, it's only managing operating systems. That is something Windows, Mac, Linux only. Okay, so if you ask what is an endpoint, so endpoint can be a desktop, laptop, also it can be your mobiles, your network devices, and other IoT devices as well. Okay, so this is what are called endpoint. Okay, so does anyone has any questions, query on this? Okay, let's go to the next one. So what is Endpoint Privilege Manager? So as I said right before, like if a malicious application is trying to get installed, and if you want to prevent that, so for that only you'll be using an Endpoint Privilege Manager solution. Not only for preventing that installation, you can define what type of application can run in your organization endpoint, what type of application should not run in your organization endpoint. So that is something you can achieve through this Endpoint Privilege Manager solution. Okay, so for example, in an organization, okay, they might have a list of trusted published applications, and for example, an application from a Microsoft is a trusted publisher, an application from an HP you can consider as a trusted publisher, application from a Dell, it is considered as a trusted publication. Same way, an application that doesn't have any publisher, an application that is something has a publisher stating something like the John Ripper password cracker tool, that is something an organization would not want, that they will consider it as a malicious application or blocked application inside an organization. Okay, so using an endpoint privilege management solution, you can ensure that only the trusted applications being approved inside the organization can be allowed to run, and also those applications privileges can be restricted based on your privileges for that application. You can use it. Okay, so for example, an application from a Microsoft, right? So let's take Microsoft has around 10,000 plus applications, in which all the 10,000 may not require admin access. Maybe let's take around 2,000 application might requires an admin level of access. Means you can segregate that 8,000 application that is from Microsoft should be run in a normal mode only. Whenever even a user is trying to elevate the privilege, it shouldn't allow, and the rest of the 2,000 application can be configured to set it to run with the required elevated privileges. Okay, so using the endpoint privilege manager solution, that can be achieved, and this endpoint EPM solution enforces the least privilege in your environment. So how it achieved is, right? So sorry, does anyone has any questions? Okay, I'm taking test now. Okay, so enforcing a least privilege in your organization endpoint is something achieved by this, because you will know what type of application to be run in your environment, and you are defining a privilege level for each application. So with that, so for example, in an organization, I have 100 applications. Out of those 100 applications, I know that 60 application only requires a low level of privileges only. The rest of the 40 would require a high level of privilege. Means you can segregate and configure it to the EPM solution. Okay, so based on whenever the user tries to use it, accordingly the privilege is also given to that application. For example, if apart from that 100 application, if someone is trying to run an application, let's take its 101 application, if he is trying to run, it will not allow to run unless you define it your endpoint privilege management solution. Okay, so with that you can provide what is it in a fine-grained level of access to the applications as well. Okay, so you need to know which application would require an elevated or admin level of permissions, which applications doesn't require uh, which requires only normal permission to run. Okay, so with the by enforcing these conditions, you will ultimately leverage with the using the local admin rights on an endpoint. So obviously in your laptop or desktop, maybe not I would not say in all the organizations they are giving it. Maybe some organization, the users who is owning the laptop or desktop might have the local admin rights on their ID. Okay, but typically their ID would be get added to the local administrators group of that respective endpoint. So with that rights, they can do anything within that endpoint. Okay, so when you implement an endpoint privilege manager solution, with that you have identified all the application, you have segregated the privileges for that application that has been already configured, means this local admin rights for the endpoints is not at all required in a device. Only you can retain access for maybe your help desk team or your IT support teams need to connect your device to troubleshoot any issues with respect to your laptop or desktop. Only their ID can be kept. From the end users, for the end users, the admin rights need not to be given. The local admin rights need not to be given. With that, you will achieve a more security posture inside your organization. And an organization, the endpoints that is being used by all the users without a local admin rights it's almost like I would say blocking almost 90% of the vulnerabilities has been already blocked. Okay, because if someone is trying to pitch into your endpoint is in your endpoint device, like either your laptop or desktop, their first motto would be to crack your crack your password. With that, using your local admin rights, escalate the privilege. Okay, even if someone is trying to pitch into your environment with the EPM solution, they might have if you have already compromised and your username password is also captured by that guy, and if he's trying to do anything to escalate the privilege, will not happen because you are not having a local admin rights in your endpoint. Okay, so he cannot be execute any malicious application in your endpoint. He cannot try to if he try to connect to any of your domains or your infrastructure, will not work with his malicious application. So that is something you can restrict with this endpoint solution. And also, that's what, as I said, right, the elevated privilege is restricted for unknown application. That is what it covers. If someone is trying to run after getting your username and password, if he's trying to execute any application that requires elevated privilege, if it's not been managed by EPM, it will be restricted. It will not allow that application to run. Okay, so with that also you can restrict your organization users to install unwanted application inside your environment as well. So that is also something you can reduce using this endpoint privilege manager solution. As I said already, if your organization has a list of malware applications or a ransomware hash values or any other tools, that is something you feel like that should not be run inside your organization environment, that is something you can straight away block using this endpoint privilege manager solution. Okay, so for blocking an application, either you should have a list of inventory that has been already that has been blocked inside your organization, means with that you can block it. Also, if you have any existing ransomware hash values, that is something you want to block in your environment, with that hash values we can block it. Okay, so this is what the overview about the endpoint privilege manager features, I would say. So does anyone has any questions, query on this? This is something it's not, I would say it is also parts, it applies for CyberArk EPM as well, but this is something not, I would not say it is only for CyberArk EPM. It is for any endpoint privilege manager solution that you go into market. It's CyberArk, it's Devinia, it's Beyond Trust. Okay, so even if you go for Microsoft, any endpoint privilege manager solution, these are the features that is something by default would be there in endpoint privilege manager solution, and these are the main features that is something we want to achieve through this endpoint privilege manager solution in an organization. Okay, any questions, query? Say yes, no, because I'm fully in the PPT mode. In case even if I'm disconnected, I may not know. So maybe after when I ask you guys, just tell me no, tell me yes or no. So with that I can proceed. Okay.
Yeah,
Yes.
Srikanth. Yeah, we are clear.
Okay.
Probably
Yeah.
you can
Okay. Is
continue
it
with the
clear? Right?
slides. If you have, yeah, if you have any doubts, then we can probably stop you then and there.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
can Pramod here. Pramod here.
Yeah.
So we are enforcing a least privilege here, mostly for the applications, right?
Yes. By defining policies, yeah, you're forcing it, but ultimately it is getting applied in your endpoints. Okay. So
Oh.
for example, you have an application called abc.exe. Okay.
Mm.
So if I set that application to be blocked means, so it is, if I put it, if you try to run it in your endpoint, it will not run. So with that, I'm enforcing the privilege on your application within your endpoint. I will not say it will not be applied for for only for your endpoint. It will get applied for your all organization endpoint or your business unit or functionality you have. To them, it will get applied.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay. So if no questions, I'll move to the next slide then. Okay. So what is there in CyberArk EPM? Okay. So CyberArk EPM features has been what is it? It's split into three different features. One is called application control. Okay. Next one is privilege management and the threat protection. Application control is nothing but the application that is being used in your organization has been monitored and controlled by the CyberArk EPM. Okay. So as I said, right, like you can define what level, what type of application can be run inside your organization, what application can be uh, shouldn't be should be restricted in your organization. Like with that level of control you can define with this. Okay, next is on for those application, what level of privileges that you want to define, so that privilege management for that application can you can achieve through this. The next one is called threat protection. This is something like an preventing the credential theft that is happening inside your in your laptop. Okay, so for example, we might use n number of credential storing application in your organization's endpoints. I mean, in your endpoints, like either it can be in a desktop or laptop. For example, good example would be KeyPass. If someone is using KeyPass, if some in KeyPass they will store all the credentials. Okay, even if they want to connect to an organization infrastructure, that piece also can be stored in the KeyPass. Okay, to prevent that KeyPass credentials getting stored, so we have an option from threat protection. So using that you can protect. So threat protection is something predominantly used for credential theft. Okay. So and also one more thing is that is available within this threat protection is called credential rotation. So it's nothing but it's another feature which is something used to integrate with the PAM solution. Okay. So if you integrate this integrate with your PAM solution means, for example, if you have an if you have an infrastructure, let's take a server or a device which will be which will be in an on-off mode state. Okay, for example, let's take, hey, I will use this server uh, twice a month or thrice a month, and it does has a set of local accounts or admin privileged accounts, and I want those privileged accounts passwords to be rotated. It's an integration that is available between CyberArk EPM and PAS that can be leveraged. Okay, so for that also, that is also will falls under the threat protection. So as I said, right, using this application control and privilege management, that is the place where you will get the fine coded privilege getting applied on your endpoint. Okay, for the applications. Okay, so this application control and privilege management works together to whitelist the application in your, I mean, add that application into your endpoint privilege management solution, and accordingly on top of it, apply the level of privileges that requires to run. Okay, so with that, you will achieve granular control of the privileges that is getting applied to that application in the endpoints. Okay, so as I said, like the credential threat prevention, that is something already covered in the threat protection. So with that, as I said, not only it does reduce the credential theft, also as I said, right, even if some maybe you guys had a word about the ransomware attacks, right? So that is something it's trying to modify your system files and it will encrypt it. Okay, so even that is something can be prevented using this solution. Okay, so for example, if you want to like if you want to define the list of application, that is something can that is something can what is it that is something can modify your your endpoints, files and folders. Like, okay, so with that, like for example, in a location that you are storing all your organization important data, only a certain allowed application can modify those files and folders. That is something you can achieve it through. So with that, if any unauthorized application, let's take ransomware's main work is nothing but once it's pitched into your environment, it will try to modify that respective file path or the folder path, and it will try to encrypt. If such a thing, if such an unauthorized application is trying to modify that file, the CyberArk EPM can prevent that. Okay, so by putting that respective application in the exclusion path, you can implement the ransomware protection as well. So also, as I said, right, so the local admin rights, that is something can be totally removed when you implement an endpoint privilege manager solution. So that is what you can achieve by this, achieve by writing the privilege, I mean defining the privileges for the application. So as I said before, I have 100 applications, out of which only 60 application can run in normal mode, means I can set that application to be always run in normal mode. The remaining 40 requires an admin rights, means, or requires an admin rights or elevated privilege. Yeah, you will, once you define that 40 applications will run with the EPM provided elevated privilege. It will not run on the user's local admin rights. It will run on the EPM provided elevated rights, which in turn gives a flexibility to us that no need of local admin rights for users in their endpoints. Okay, so that is something you can achieve through this CyberArk EPM. And also, not these are the main features that I would say with the CyberArk EPM. And also, it does provide other integration features, something like maybe one thing is SAML, and you can integrate with your Azure AD to manage providing the privileges to the users, and you can integrate with your service now. Okay, and also if your organization already having a CyberArk identity, using that CyberArk identity, you can use OAuth to access the applications. So OAuth is something like an open authorization tool, which is something used for application level authorization. So even if you have only it is supported for CyberArk identity, not for other products. Okay, so if you have CyberArk identity, you can use the OIDC, that is something called OAuth, to use the privileges for the application. Okay, so this is what the CyberArk EPM. So as I said, remember that these are the three features. One is application control, privilege management, and threat protections. Okay, so if no questions.
Hi,
Yes.
Shrikant, this is Gautam this side. So can you just help me out with what are the difference between local admin rights and the EPM elevated admin rights? So
Okay.
actually,
So
I have seen it when I'm working on one of the EPM projects. So I've seen it that whenever we do the elevation for any application, it is asking for the admin privileges. It is not going through.
sorry, I didn't get your question. So you are having an EPM solution and you are trying to use EPM elevation and it's still asking for password.
Yeah. So whenever we have
Okay.
elevated, like we have elevated one of the application as per the EPM policies. So after that, when user or we are trying to install it, it is asking for the admin privileges.
Okay, so it might be two things. One is that applications and all the other child applications not been properly whitelisted. One thing. Okay. Second thing is if your application is trying to modify anything within the OS kernel level or something, to an extent only EPM can provide the privileges. Okay, for example, best example I can give you, right? If you try to install an OS update with this EPM policy, it is something will not work because it is totally dependent on the built-in local admin account. Okay, so using EPM, you cannot totally eradicate the local admin rights. That's what, as I said, right? We will still leave the help desk or IT admins accounts in the endpoints. That is for the reason of, in case if something is not working, if something is broken in the user's endpoint, to fix it up, they will need it. Okay, so two things I would say with your issue is you are not properly whitelisted. You haven't properly whitelisted that application in your with the EPM policy. The next thing is you need to identify whether that application requires genuine admin rights or not. Okay, so these are the two things I would say.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, if there is no questions, I'll go to the next slide then. So now, how CyberArk EPM works? So when if you know about CyberArk EPM around, I would say almost 6 to 7 years back, CyberArk EPM was an on-prem solution. Okay, so that is something was called Viewfinity. Okay, then after that they changed that as EPM. When it was released in the market, it was called as Viewfinity only. Okay, so if it is an on-prem solution, yeah, a traditional process of having a database, web server, everything you have to host in your on-premise, and with that you can manage your CyberArk EPM solution. But right now, CyberArk, I think CyberArk around, I don't know what's exactly. I think 3 to 4 years back, they have sunset the on-premise solution available in the market. So if someone is going to purchase CyberArk EPM for an organization, they have to purchase CyberArk EPM as a SaaS solution only from the CyberArk. Okay, so if you are going to purchase CyberArk EPM, means you would be given with a software as a solution only too. Okay, so with that, your entire CyberArk EPM solution will be hosted in the CyberArk's tenant only. Okay, in the CyberArk's private cloud, it will get hosted. Okay, so CyberArk has a big private cloud with them. In that, they will create the SaaS tenant for each customer, or for the each organization. They will creating it, and a unique URL will be given to you guys. With that, you can log in and access the CyberArk EPM solution. So as I said, right now CyberArk is only available in the cloud form, that is software as a solution. Okay, so that is where that is what something you can see here, CyberArk EPM SaaS and I have mentioned. Okay, so once the EPM SaaS has been given to you, okay, so using this, you will be provided with a default administrator credential. So that is something with every application you will get, right? If you install an application or anything, you will be given with a default admin credential. That is something will be given to that person. Using that account, they can log into the SaaS tenant. It's totally from your browser. Okay, so if you want to connect to EPM SaaS tenant, you have to go to your browser, put that login URL, enter the credential. It will automatically get logged into your EPM SaaS tenant. Okay, so once you log, as I said, right, once you log into your SaaS tenant, yeah, you can start writing the sets, writing the policies, creating the users, and creating policies for the endpoints. Everything can be done within the EPM. Okay, so how your endpoints will communicate with the CyberArk EPM solution, because as I said, the CyberArk EPM is sitting in your cloud solution that is there in the uh, CyberArk hosted cloud. Okay, so how your endpoints will get communicated. So for the from the CyberArk EPM SaaS tenant, from the sets, you will get an EPM agent. It's nothing but what is it? An application that sits inside your endpoint, and it will get actively communicates with the EPM SaaS solution to update all the stuffs. Like if I'm whitelisting any new application or policy, that will get updated via this EPM agent communication. Okay, even if I'm trying to block an application, that will get by this EPM agent. Even if I'm trying to make any configuration changes, that is also will get by this EPM agent. Even if I'm trying to map the user who is associated with endpoint in a policy, that is also will get updated by the CPM. Everything which I'm modifying the EPM SaaS tenant, if I'm defining a policy, if I'm defining an application in a policy action, if I'm trying to put certain configurations for the endpoints, everything would be achieved by this EPM agent. That is something that will actively communicate with your SaaS tenant. It will get all the configuration within your laptops or desktop. For your Mac, if you have Mac device, it will get applied for Mac device, and even for Linux systems, it will get applied. Same way, all your activities that is happening in your endpoints also will be sent to the EPM SaaS tenant by this EPM agent only. For example, let's take you are trying to run any unauthorized application inside in your laptop or desktop. That would be captured as an event in the CyberArk EPM SaaS tenant. Maybe the EPM administrator, or if you have any EPM auditors assigned, they can view those data from the EPM SaaS tenant based on the events captured. Okay, so it is a two-way. Like your whatever the configuration EPM administrator configuring the EPM SaaS tenant, it will be automatically fetched by the EPM agent by the EPM agent to the endpoints. Same way, all your data, like with respect to your application executions and application usage and everything also would be found in the EPM system. So the EPM agent is something like sits inside your endpoint and actively communicates with your sustainant. Okay. So if your EPM agent is, and also if your EPM agent will work only with the internet. Okay. If there is no internet is available, yeah, the connection may not work. Okay. And like if you have any internet restricted environments, which is in which you want to implement CyberArk EPM, you have to go for the other workaround, something like using a proxy servers. Okay, so that is something deviates from this. Okay, so that is something you have to work internally with the CyberArk, and you have to whitelist those proxy servers, and accordingly it should work for your system. Okay, so as I said, the EPM agents will sit in each endpoints. For example, if I have a laptop and if I have a desktop, in both the machines, a EPM agent separately has to be installed. Accordingly, each events associated with the laptop and desktop will be separately sent in this tenant, and it will be differentiated based on the endpoint name, I mean the desktop name or the laptop name, and also based on the users who has used on the laptops and desktop. Okay, so this is how the CyberArk EPM works. Okay, so all the configurations, policies, user permissions, and channel integration, everything would be done inside the SaaS tenant, and those are gets applied in their organization endpoints and to the respective EPM users inside your organization. Like you guys understood what is it, how it works? Okay, so I'm taking it as no. And one more thing, when it comes to an architecture definition, if you ask with respect to the infrastructure, I would not say you need to do much of architecture definition or architecture to be defined, because it's totally all the things, all the stuffs are resides in the CyberArk cloud. Okay, so you will get only one URL. Using that, you will using that URL only you will log in, and accordingly you will manage all the endpoints within that EPM SaaS tenant. Okay, so when it comes to the infrastructure that is hosting the CyberArk EPM solution, if you ask, it's only the EPM agent from the tenant will be distributed to your organization endpoints. Okay, so when it comes to, if you ask like, oh, then there is no an architecture definition for the CyberArk, I would say with the infrastructure there is nothing, but when it comes to the design level of architecture, that is something you will see in the upcoming steps. Okay, so does anyone has any questions, queries? Okay. Okay. So next is set. So as I said, right, so this is the place where you will define that what is it, the design architecture. Okay, so set is nothing but a container in which only you will have all the policies, your configurations, and even the all your data with respect to that events or reports. Okay, everything would be stored in this set. Okay, I would say set is something like a folder. Okay, for example, let's take, I have 3 different folders. One folder is for all the applications related to all the application that is being used in a US region, and another folder is for Europe region. Another folder is for an APAC region. Okay, so I have a set of files, from the US and Europe and APAC region. I want to organize it. Organize it means what you will do, you will put the respective regions files into the respective folders. US files or folder will go to the US folder. Europe files and folders will go to the Europe folder, and for APAC it will go for APAC. Same way, let's go for another way. I have a folder for Windows, Unix, Mac. Okay, so accordingly in the Windows folder you will put all the Windows machines. In a Unix folder you put all the Unix machines. In the Mac folder you will put all the Mac machines. So that is how the set is something you can define. Okay, it is totally based on your requirements. If you want, if your environment, if your organization has 2 different environments, something called dev and production, yeah, you can define 2 different sets. One is for dev, another one is for production. Okay, in the same way, if your environment is spread across a global, let's take I have set of users in the US, I have set of users in the Europe, I have set of users in the, let's take in the APAC side. Okay, so accordingly you can create the sets based on your regions that you want. Okay, and let's take, as I said, if you want to segregate based on the endpoints, yeah, I want to put a separate set for Windows, separate set for Unix, a separate set for Mac. Yeah, based on that you can define. So this is the place where you have to design your architecture. So by putting this set and defining it, you can accordingly add the endpoints into it. So that's what, as I said, right? You have, let's take in your organization, let's take you have 10,000 endpoints. In US, I have 5,000. In Europe, I have 2,500, and APAC have 2,500. I want to manage them very clearly, and also they have restrictions to use application based on the regions. Yeah, in that scenario, you have to go for a region-based set defined. Okay, or else let's say I have same set of 10,000 endpoints in which 7,500 is for Windows, another 2,500 is for Mac. So if you don't have such a restriction, like I want to manage all the Windows endpoints in a single set, you can do it. And same way, if your organization has a environment types, like I have a set of dev endpoints, I have a set of UAT endpoints, I have a set of production endpoints. So accordingly, you have to create, you can create the sets and manage it. Okay, so that is what that is something you should know how your organization's framework is there for the endpoints or for their infrastructures. Accordingly, you have to define the set. Okay, and also uh, there is a thing like, as I said, each set has unique configurations, unique policies, and unique EPM agent. Okay, so one set CPM agent will not be same as the other set CPM agent. For example, let's take I have a dev environment, I have a production environment. Okay, if I download a EPM agent from a dev set, and if I try to install a production endpoint, the production endpoint will still report to this dev set. Okay, so you have to make sure that EPM agents are correctly used in the respective business units or the respective regions endpoints. Okay, so as I said before, maybe set is something I would say, as I said, it's a folder, and if you guys have already worked on PAM solution, right, there is a feature called safe, password safe. Okay, so it is similar to that. The set is something I would say it as safe. Okay, so that is where you will put all the stuff, your endpoints, policies, configurations, your agent will be there, your upgrade, whatever you want to do with respect to the endpoints, everything you will do inside the set. Okay,